It's been probably one of the most bizarre seasons that we've ever seen in the Premier League, with the top six being right down there in the bottom five. But we're going to look at the most underperforming teams this season, and they've had plenty of mentions on Football Forecast. We're also going to talk about certain players as well. One Philip Foden's definitely getting a mention. But let's start with Arsenal, because I think, did you have Arsenal to win the league at the start of the season?
I think we all did, didn't we? I think we all expected them to. And I think most people expected them to. I think most people thought this was going to be their year, especially once they saw how tired City were coming back off the break. And when their form started to dip, I think everyone was expecting Arsenal to win the league. And I know I do come for Arsenal a lot, and I think that I have a right to do so, because you're, 7 years through a process, you've spent almost £900 million. You've got an FA Cup during COVID to your name, and that is it. And every single Arsenal fan will tell you that their players are the best. They'll tell you that Arteta's the best. And they can never, ever do it when it arrives. They had a good Champions League campaign. They did. There's no point in denying that. But in the league, they've massively, massively underperformed. And for Arsenal fans, it seems like they're the only team in the world who's ever had injuries. Everyone had injuries. In fact, let's be completely honest. Apart from Saka, they had a much easier time than Spurs have had. They've had a much easier time than City have had through injuries. So I don't even think that that can be a consideration, because every team is having lots of injured players at the moment. I think the fact that everyone expected them to win the league, they all expected to win the league. The fact that they didn't, I think, is genuinely quite poor, and I think they've been miles off it.
Would you say, though, that their Champions League run, and you talk about this a lot, actually, they're like building towards winning the Champions League. And also for Arsenal, like, greatness at this point isn't a Carabao Cup or an FA Cup or a Europa League. Like, they have to win the Premier League, which is the hardest trophy to win.
Yeah, like, obviously the goal is the Premier League or the Champions League, but along the way, during the process, put some other silverware on the table, boys. Like, and I'm not saying that you won't still receive criticism if next season you finish second and win a Carabao Cup, but at least allow us to have the conversation. Us fans are like, yeah, but that won't be good enough. We don't know if that'll be good enough or not, because you don't win those competitions. And me and Harry Simu argued last week about it, about how Arteta hasn't necessarily respected the cup competitions. And I was right. I went and looked at it. 2 years ago, they played against Man City in the FA Cup. And they rotated. They rotated completely, and City played their strongest team, and obviously Arsenal went out. And it's like, for a team that's got so much history in that competition, at least put that silverware on the table, because we can point to Klopp and Liverpool as the example all the time. They only won one Premier League. They only won one Champions League. But along the way, he gave you an FA Cup and he gave you a couple of League Cups as well to pacify fans. And for Arsenal, they haven't done that. And so in the season where they will finish second, but again, finish trophyless, it's not good enough. They will point, rightly so, to the Champions League. Nobody can take away what they did against Real Madrid, even if people are trying to do it retrospectively. They beat Real Madrid 5-1 in aggregate. Nobody does that to Real Madrid. That's Real Madrid who spanked City the round before. Again, not the same City side, but they got a good result there. But progress in the Champions League without winning it or maintaining your position in the Premier League is not good enough for a team like Arsenal, who some fans remember them going unbeaten in the season. It's been 21 years since they last won a league title. Time to start putting medals on the table, and they have been one of the biggest underperformers this season.
And I think when you talk about underperformance or failure, it's also about that expectation versus what you can actually give. And I know there's been a lot of conversation, who's had a better season, Spurs or Arsenal, Arteta or Ange. The expectation for Ange was to get into the top four and win a trophy. As he said before, he's done it in one game. The expectation for Arsenal is to win at least something when you're spending quite a lot of money and you're backing this guy. He's had so much backing, more than any other big club would give him, in terms of patience and also financials as well. And I think the expectation was to win something this year, just like it was last year and just like it was the year before, and he's failed to do that.
Man City at the start of the season, where did you have them? Third, I think.
Third, I think.
You were quite pessimistic at the start of the season, to be fair.
I just think, I feel like you can say City have underperformed, and they have, but I think the expectation there isn't as high because of how much they've won over the last few years and how much football has been played. I understand, and honestly, like watching City this year hasn't been that entertaining. I think a lot of the players have been poor. I think Pep's underperformed in a lot of decisions he's made. We talk about Phil Foden. He was Player of the Year last year. He's been absolutely terrible this year. Haaland, granted, he's got 21 goals. He's been well underperforming as well. Most of those were in the first sort of 5 or 6 games. So
he had 10 after 6 games.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that lots of the players have underperformed, but I think the difference between City and some of the other teams on the list is that they've done so much that this was expected at some point. No team wins everything forever, and I feel like you can give them a little bit of a pass.
I think I hear it, but if we're just looking at this season, in terms of this season alone, you had them probably third as well. I think I had them second, yeah. So, like, even though we were expecting a drop off, this has been quite monumental. Like, they're nowhere near a title race.
Yeah, it's been a stark drop off. Like, it's unimaginable before the season started that City would go into the final game of the season, their place in Europe or Champions League not guaranteed. Like, I understand like there's going to be a bit of a drop off, but nobody expected this. But I do think I side with Kim in terms of 4 in a row was ridiculous. 5 in a row, it starts to become a bit Bundesliga-ish, and nobody wanted that. And so I just think that I can excuse it. It's what they do next season, right? If this is the season where they finish third and the next season they win it again, that's par for the course, really. Nobody can win it every single year in the Premier League, and especially where you're going to have to rejuvenate the squad, and you brought in some new players that have showed glimpses. Like, I really like Savinho, but he's not at the level yet. And normally with Pep signings, it takes him a year to settle in. We saw it with Jack Grealish, right? And so next year is the year that we can judge City and see if this is really a blip or is it really a sign of things to come.
The question I would ask is, and I was looking at the City team and I was thinking, I get it, I agree with you, the blip was definitely due. But then I looked at the squad and I thought, Ederson's going to be gone, more than likely. Stones will probably be gone. If he stays, he's been injury prone. Then you've got Gavardio, Ake might not be there. So Rico Lewis is at right back still. Mateus Nunes probably won't be there, and if they don't ship him off, he'll basically be in the squad. And Pep even said the other day he doesn't want a big squad anymore. Bernardo's gone, Gundo's gone, Kovacic is gone, De Bruyne's gone. Who else is there then? Grealish is probably gone. That's like 8 players in his squad that have all declined at the exact same time. I do think, like you said, Guardiola's underperformed to an extent. I think he's underperformed massively because there's been times this season where I've watched them play the exact same style for 10 games straight and I've gone to do something.
But loads of these top sides are paying the consequence, paying the price for the poor business that it did in summer. Name me one top side in the Premier League that brought in the player that positively affected their starting 11 in the Premier League. Savinho's been okay, right, for City. Look at Arsenal. Scored once. Yeah. Look at Arsenal. Mikel Moreno's, played as a striker, but has he really positively affected their starting 11 to a point where you think they're title challengers?
But hindsight's a beautiful thing.
But Liverpool didn't do any business. Chelsea didn't bring any players that improved their starting 11. What I'm saying is that loads of these teams that underperformed this season, the reason why it was such a poor Premier League is that normally you have 1 or 2 players that you bring in that positively affects your starting 11. None of the top teams had that. So everyone kind of stood still. That's why I've seen business being done early right now. That's why Frimpong's getting done early. That's why we've seen Zubimendi get done early. And I think City done some of the business in January, rightly so. Going to go again in the summer and they'll be fine.
Right. There is United Spurs on this list, but we've done a separate video where they both got battered, basically. So go and watch that. Chelsea, the last one on this list. To be fair, Kweku, I should be asking you, being the Chelsea fan. There was a point, we were in this discussion. Did you say Chelsea were legitimately in a title race?
I thought they were in a title race.
Yeah, I remember
that
happening.
Time.
And I remember wanting to throw his pen at you, but with no violence on in the studio. But now you've ended up somewhere in between your expectations, I think. Because you obviously didn't think you were going to win a title, but now when you look at this season, look back at this season, you're going to win the trophy that you don't care about at all.
Not
Ungrateful.
Not at all.
Your star player Palmer looks completely different to last season.
Yeah.
Does he or does he not?
The Palmer thing is interesting, right? Because I have eyes. We all watch football with our eyes. He is clearly not at the level that he was at last season. But let's bear in mind that people do have game tape on him. Last year was the first year as a proper starter in the Premier League. Scored 22 league goals, got to double figures and assists as well. And this season's a really poor season. It's almost like the skies for him. It's a disaster. He scored 15 league goals. Do you know how many goals Bukayo Saka scored in his best goal scoring season at Arsenal? 16. And so if this is the floor for Cole Palmer, then we're talking about one of the best players in the world, a generational talent. Okay. So if this is an underperforming season, give me this as his floor. Give me this as his underperforming season, because next year is 30 goals, is it? If this is a bad season for Cole Palmer, my goodness, I can't wait for him to have a good season.
Listen,
what have you got to say about that?
We've sat here and we've said, you have said about Bruno Fernandes and how he almost stat pads to some extent and how you can't win trophies with a guy who doesn't do anything but score goals or get random assists. Cole Palmer currently, the data suggests, when it's going well, he's there, he's delivering, and in the second half of the season when it's not been going well, he hasn't done anything. I'm not saying he's a bad footballer, but I'm saying by your metric alone, the Bruno Fernandes metric that you use, doesn't Palmer fall into that?
So on the Bruno scale, where does Palmer fall? I understand what you're saying in terms of, I agree. In some of the biggest games, Cole Palmer could have possibly done more. But if you look at the chances created in the Premier League, nobody's created more chances than Cole Palmer. The issue is, I don't want to disrespect anybody at Chelsea, but like some of the players around him, right? Nicholas Jackson was missing for a lot of the season. Nicholas Jackson also misses a lot of chances. And so with Cole Palmer, he's a little bit beholden to the players that surround him. But when you are one of those guys, you got to go get it. And I've said that about Cole Palmer because that's what Saka has done in recent seasons, right? In big games, he shows up and he scores important goals. I remember the goal he scored against Liverpool earlier this season. Of course, Bukayo Saka scores, and he was half fit in that game. Mo Salah in every big game scores a goal. Kevin De Bruyne, when he was in his pomp, every big game scores a goal. I think Cole Palmer's that good, right? So give me those numbers. And he's given me the numbers in terms of he scored 15 league goals, but I want the important ones. And that's the next step in his development. And that will come. He's very, very good. In his first 2 seasons as a starter, he scored 37 league goals as a non-striker. I think most strikers in the country would be very, very happy with those numbers.
I'm not denying him. I'm just speaking about your Bruno scale that you've had. Would you say Chelsea were underperformed?
I don't think so. I think Enzo Maresca, as I've said, has had quite a lot to do when he came in. I think Chelsea's transfer policy over the last couple of years has been a bit insane, and the fact that he's managed to create a coherent squad from that and challenge. I know it's a European trophy that no one really cares about, but you're still in the final of it. You probably will win and get possibly into the Champions League. I think that was the expectation, and I think if he does that, it's just been a successful season.
Final question. If you lose that final, do you care?
No, as long as we beat Forest on the weekend. Because so I care in terms of it being embarrassing, but it's embarrassing Chelsea being in that tournament. Everybody lets Chelsea fans know how much the squad costs. £1.6 billion. Chelsea should not be in the Europa Conference League. That competition was not made for teams like Chelsea. To even be in it feels a little bit embarrassing. Yes, we'll be able to sing we've won it all, but like the biggest teams in the world ain't. My opinions on the Europa League have been documented and what I think of that competition, let alone the Conference League. We'll beat Betis, but if we beat Forest on the weekend and lose to Betis, I will not lose any sleep.
Can't wait for Anthony to score the winner.
There is one who I do actually want to talk about underperforming very, very quickly. Ruud van Nistelrooy. An absolute disgrace. I'm sorry.
Leicester.
An absolute disgrace. You've come in from Steve Cooper, who was 17th, I think 4 points above the relegation zone, and you've lost pretty much every single game, playing absolutely horrendous football after being cited as some sort of miracle worker. An awful, awful season.
I'll let it pass. He's at Leicester. What was he meant to do? He's got 39-year-old Jamie Vardy. Jamie Vardy's retired and chosen to play his home game and not the last game of the season because why not?